Now, still, what remains in the debate going back to Libya is the question of the reason for the United States' involvement in the first place, because protecting civilians does clearly not seem to have been the only goal. Congressman Dennis Kucinich of Ohio, he is one who is asking in a recent article if the CIA was involved in planning regime change back when protests broke out in Benghazi before that. And did the CIA have a role in fomenting what was essentially a civil war? Well, here to talk about that is Jack Rice. He's a journalist and a former CIA officer himself. Thank you for being with us. So my first question to you is, we've heard Congressman Kucinich ask, did the CIA have a role before protests broke out in February, before the events of February and March? Do you think that could be a possibility?
Oh, sure I do. I mean, let's be honest. The CIA is involved in every place that they try to get involved in. They were at least on the ground in Egypt. They try to be on the ground everywhere in every major country in the region. And Tripoli is one of those places you would have expected them. So to deny it would, I think, would be naive. So I think what Congressman Kucinich is talking about is a reasonable question. But I think one of the problems that we have is the U.S. has a very schizophrenic relationship and sort of approach to the Middle East in general. We talk about democracy and how we're supporting the rebels and how incredibly important this was to protect human life, etc. But we made the very same argument in Egypt, but that ignores the fact that we supported Mubarak for decades as our very closest ally in the region. Now, how do you reconcile those two? And I think there's a lot of people in the Middle East who are asking that very question today.
Of course. I mean, it's the same question that comes up in countries like Bahrain, where the United States has not had the same reaction as it did to Libya, where, of course, it's a powerful geopolitical partner as well as a very important source of oil. But Libya is a different situation, and the United States has had a different relationship with the leader and with that country. Do you think that regime change was a plan of the United States' earlier on than what it unfolded to be in this civil war?
I think that in the broader sense, the answer is yes. I think if we look at what we found with the Arab Spring in general, when all of a sudden you realized that Egypt could fall, and Egypt was going to fall, all of a sudden it opens up this broader question of what else can change in the region and what else can we change in our favor. And let's face it, let's never deny that what the U.S. is doing here is that this isn't about protecting the people of Libya. This is about American interest first and foremost. We can shine this up all we want. This is not a left or right question, a Republican or a Democratic question. This is an American foreign policy question. It's cold-blooded as hell. The problem that we have, again, is reconciling when we say one thing, but we turn around and do another.
And regardless of that hypocrisy, doesn't the U.S. realize that this could all backfire in its face? I mean, my last guest and I were talking about that Sharia law could be, what this ends up, which is not something which the United States would want. We've seen that happen in other countries and be a struggle in Iraq. So this could not go the way that the United States wants it. Leaders have to know that, right?
Oh, without question. I mean, that's what they're afraid of. It's interesting. There are a lot of conversations being had across the diplomatic world right now. The British Foreign Minister Haig just came out this morning, and he even said, where do we go next? Well, the first thing we have to do is get some stability on the ground. I mean, imagine what happens when all of these 20-something-year-old kids, and they are kids in many cases, who roll into Gaddafi's compound and walk out with a lot of weaponry on the streets of Libya, on the streets of Tripoli. Where do you go next? What do the Americans do if all of a sudden these guys turn around and decide, you know what? What we need is more Sharia. What we need is more Islam than what we saw from Gaddafi. That's the problem. How do the Americans reconcile that? I haven't had an answer. I haven't heard an answer, certainly not as of yet anyway.
How do you think that Americans and the U.S. will reconcile that? Do you think that the United States will get dragged into, or not get dragged into, but drag themselves into war to prevent what they want from not happening happen?
Oh, I don't think you're going to see a war in any sense of the word. What you may see is exactly what we have done in the past. You see a lot of shadow wars. And the shadow war is to basically move into a region and try to control it from the sidelines. This isn't what we're seeing in some place like Yemen as of yet. But that's one of our biggest fears. Let's think about what we have in Yemen right now, where we supported a leadership which had no control in the region. But the problem is there was nothing better that was there. And then when he gets pushed aside, you have such incredible instability that you can't turn to anybody and say, you need to stop what's going on in your own country. So now we've expanded into the likes of not just Iraq and Afghanistan, and I've been in both places, other parts on the Horn of Africa, but you're also talking about Yemen. Does the American government prepare to actually move into Libya in a very real sense, too? Well, President Obama has been very hesitant to do that, but you should note that the likes of Rick Perry, the likes of Bachmann, the likes of Mitt Romney have all said that President Obama was not aggressive enough. We should have had more troops. We should have had more planes, more sorties.
Well, then,
so what does that say for the future?
I don't know. It seems like conservatives always just want to have, some of them, the hawks, want more war, but we'll have to wait and see if this is a web that continues to expand and see if we find out more about just what role the CIA did have in this civil war. But thank you so much for your expertise as a former CIA officer. Jack Rice, he's also a journalist.